Hello. We're going to talk about reproductive justice today. So reproductive justice is a movement which was started by a group of Black women who recognized that the women's rights movement, which was and still often is led by white women, lacked a lens that could more equitably fight for the needs of women of color and other marginalized people. Reproductive justice equally fights for the right to have a child, the right not to have a child, the right to parent children we have in safe and healthy conditions, regardless of age, race, gender, sexual orientation, immigration status, ability, or economic condition, and the right to bodily autonomy. A reproductive justice framework analyzes power systems and addresses intersecting oppressions. It's different from a reproductive health model, which focuses on services, and a reproductive rights model, which focuses on laws. Through a reproductive justice framework, we can begin to understand that there are many barriers that can prevent people from being able to access the resources and healthcare they need. Everything from laws to transportation, affordability, where you live, where you come from, your documentation status, accessibility, all these things can get in the way of you being able to access healthcare. And even things like societal and cultural stigma can affect your reproductive rights, bodily autonomy, and even how you receive reproductive health. Reproductive justice moves beyond a choice model that does not accurately represent the lives and lived experiences of Indigenous women, women of color, and other marginalized communities. We know Roe versus Wade was a landmark Supreme Court decision that made abortion legal in this country in 1973. But we must address the fact that Roe versus Wade did not make abortion accessible. The first known woman to die after Roe versus Wade was already in place was a 27-year-old Latina, mother of one, named Rosie Jimenez. She died because she couldn't afford a safe abortion due to the Hyde Amendment, which bans the use of federal funds such as Medicaid insurance. Having a choice is theoretical for many people. A reproductive justice framework acknowledges that choice does not equal access. Choice assumes that we live in an equitable society where we all have access to the same things, and that's not the reality we live in. Today, there are states that have only one abortion provider in the entire state. There are people that need to travel for hundreds of miles and wait for weeks and even months before they're able to access an abortion. Today, there are politicians trying and succeeding by banning abortion as early as 6 weeks into pregnancy. And there are people that cannot afford to pay for an abortion. And on top of all these barriers, folks also have to face cultural and societal stigma around their reproductive decisions. People who decide to become parents at a young age face stigma about what it means to be a young parent. Same-sex parents trying to adopt face stigma around what families are supposed to look like. Trans people face stigma that can result in them prolonging seeking medical care because of the structural barriers and attacks that they face when trying to access healthcare and when trying to access an abortion. And of course, we know that abortion is a highly stigmatized medical procedure and that this stigma shapes the way that people can access that healthcare. Abortion stigma does not stand alone. Stigma surrounding abortion for many people is interwoven with stigma about how they got pregnant when they didn't want to be, or why they don't want to continue their pregnancy. This might include stigma around women's sexuality and enjoying sex, young people having sex at all, what responsible sexual behavior is, and who is ultimately responsible for it. It might also include stigma around poverty or decisions whether to have children or how many children are too many. The stigma we face individually varies by sociocultural background and the different oppressions we face. The weight of all this stigma piles up for many people. As we move forward talking about abortion stigma and access to healthcare, we have to be intentional about ensuring our conversations and our work around health equity pays attention to the structural barriers and oppressions that many people face in this country and around the world. We have to come to this work from a place of understanding that some people have to make a choice between paying for their medication or buying diapers for their children. We have to understand that the trauma a child faces when they're separated from their family will impact them and their health for the rest of their lives. We have to understand that Flint, Michigan hasn't had clean drinking water in 5 years, and that many Native and Indigenous people also lack access to clean water, and that this has a tremendous impact on a person's health and life outcomes. If we are not actively discussing structural oppression when we're talking about healthcare access, we are failing. We can and must do better, not only to expand access to healthcare and to destigmatize abortion, but to dismantle the power structures that lead to health inequity. Thank you.